pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any additions, changes to the agenda?
No.
Any public comment?
Yes. I don't know.
Yeah, no, these are all staff, so.
Oh, okay. All right.
All you.
I can stand or sit. I'll sit. My name is Mike Caladimos. I'm a lifelong resident in Morton Grove. I use the parks a lot. The only reason I'm here, and I tried to figure out which meeting would be a good meeting to come to, so I chose this one because it's the first one on the list. I'm interested in raising the issue of Horror Pool and preserving it. There's a big rumor going around, and many rumors going around, about Horror Pool eventually becoming a municipal building complex that would house a police station and fire and a village hall. And I really think that that would be, that would just kind of magnify the lack of urban planning that our village has continued to display, because they bought the General Bandage building for that reason. And also, it would diminish the value of the parks, of which you folks are the steward. So that's really why I came, because I want to raise that issue. I want people in town to understand that that's being contemplated, and certainly I'll do everything I can to organize them and dissuade the board from making that kind of a poor decision to eliminate that pool complex. So that's what I have to say. I certainly don't expect discussion on that point tonight, but I'd like to see it in minutes in the future. If it is indeed going to be an issue, it should be talked about in the open and not over fences.
And it will be. As we get down the road, there'll be public input and open forums kind of a thing.
Yeah, I hope so, because I mean, to tell you the truth, I didn't think, and I don't want to turn this into what Mike's all mad about, but I didn't think there was a lot of public input in what happened at Oriole Pool. Because I remember looking at that saying, what the hell? No one asked anyone if they wanted a day camp from their one-time, Olympic swimming pool. So a lot of people are very upset by that, and I think they'd be even more upset to see a real classic go by the wayside. So anyways, that's my public comment.
Yeah, let me just add that on the agenda is a GovHR proposal, and that's where we work with a consultant to get some consensus of the board as to what they would like to see happen. So no decision has been made as to the future of HAR. However, we did reach out to District 70 and the village to see if they would become part of the discussion about what we could do, because 70 has some issues, the village has some issues. What does that look like? That we hadn't really got. So maybe that's what you're hearing about, sort of a big complex. So
Yeah.
As far as the board is and the staff is, nothing has been decided.
Great.
So, but
Terrific.
we will find out from the board as to what they would like to see with staff input. And anything that comes up, it would go out to the public for feedback and review, because it's, as we've said in the past, it's not the board's, it's not the staff's facility, it's the community, so they need to have some say into what we want to do. There are certain limits as to what we're going to be able to provide with that.
And I totally appreciate that, and the only reason I'm here on a winter night like this is because of what happened at Oriole, and people are not pleased with how that progressed. So, I want to be proactive for all mine.
Yeah.
Sure.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
And I'm new to the board. I think most of us are on the board are members that weren't here when Oriole Pool was, I would say, right?
Good answer.
All of us. Well, I'm just saying. But
No, I know.
I've been a lifelong resident of Morton Grove myself. My first job actually was at Oriole Pool in that concession stand. I was on the swim team, so I get it. I remember that. And I hear your concerns. I think the board hears your concerns. And I think there's a lot of rumors out there. But I think if you give us time, I think that everything will be taken into account so that we make that decision, because the last thing I think anybody wants to do is get into a situation where you don't feel like you're being able to have a
Right,
a facility, you know, that is beneficial that you're paying for.
great,
So
terrific.
that's all I can say.
And I'm very pleased to hear you say that. What's your name?
Steve.
Okay, I'll look you up over there. You're right next to the blanked out picture, huh?
I'm next on the list.
No, thank you very much, everyone, for hearing me and, you know.
But what I was gonna ask you
Yeah.
is this, what is the rumor about Oriole Pool? I mean, what are people saying that they don't like
About Oriole?
About that they don't like about Oriole Pool?
I think that people who are, even young adults, are saying that's a kiddie pool. And there's not much room for young adults there. It's lily pads and frogs and it's a spray park. And it does very much appeal to the day camp crowd and that kind of thing. But I think then, if we're to also characterize the more mature folks in the town, they'll say, you know, day camp, all this. Park District's supposed to be for the residents, you know, appeal to the residents, not turn it into a revenue stream. And I understand all the revenue issues and all that, but if we constantly try to turn our parks into a revenue building enterprise, that leaves people who want a real life park district, Niles and Glenview, to go, you know, ice skating or weightlifting or do the things that people in park districts want to do. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Okay, because I don't want to come off wrong.
That's why I asked.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
curious what the rumors are, what people don't like.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
for me, I have a 9-year-old son who loves using, you know, that pool. But, you know, some of the concerns that you have, I would say, are very fair.
Uh-huh.
So that's why I wanted to hear.
Good.
What you said.
And we have had feedback from some of the residents in that area that, you know, what happened to our lap pool, what happened to it.
Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it definitely echoed some of those sentiments, for sure.
Thanks for hearing me.
Thanks for coming out.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah.
I think Marty would question if it's a revenue stream.
Yes.
Our
I
pools
was gonna say.
collectively lose 100.
No, I know, I actually,
Yeah.
I didn't have anything else to print to come here, so I printed the budget from last year. So I look, it's not much of a revenue.
No.
But then again, you know, I don't think it really has to be. But sure. I don't have to take up any more of your time. I got a washing machine in park at home. So. Thanks very much, Roy. Thanks, Mike. Nice meeting you.
Administration and Finance.
So we have a sexual harassment policy and ordinance, which is an action item. So we're gonna have training.
Yeah, we'll do the training first. So sexual harassment training is something that we provide to all full-time and part-time employees on an annual basis. It is a long-standing policy. We've had one for decades. It's been reviewed by PDERMA on multiple occasions. It's been reviewed by attorneys. It's been reviewed by the Distinguished Agency Accreditation. Everything was fine. So again, it's an annual training. So who falls within this policy? Professional staff, full-time, part-time, volunteers, independent contractors, vendors, and even participants fall within this policy. But more importantly, you guys, the board, also fall within the policy. So why are these changes? Why are we propose these changes, and why do we have to have it done before January 16th? Well, because of all the stuff that's been happening down in Springfield, they've made some changes in that, you know, things happen one place, everybody's gonna make those changes. So the new sexual harassment policy has been reviewed by our attorneys. They've expanded it quite a bit. And then one of the things that you'll have to do after this is adopt it by ordinance. So what is the definition of sexual harassment? Sexual harassment means any unwelcome sexual advances or requests for sexual favors or conduct of a sexual nature. Excuse me. Generally, it falls into three categories. One is a term of condition of an individual appointment. So, you know, just really use harasser would go to a victim and say, you know, for continued employment, you'll have to have sex or something to that effect. Quid pro quo just means something for something, or this for that. So you provide, as a harasser, I say, okay, I will give you a promotion, a raise, I would give you better working conditions if you agree to have sex with me. Then the other one is creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive working environment. And what I wanted to do on this is make sure that I read all of it, because it's extensive. Unwanted sexual advances or requests for sexual favors, sexual jokes and innuendo, verbal abuse of a sexual nature, commentary about an individual's body, sexual prowess or sexual deficiencies, leering, catcalls, touching, insulting, or obscene comments or gestures, displays, or circulation in the workplace of sexual suggestive objects or pictures, including through email, text messages, or other workplace communications, other physical, verbal, and visual conduct of a sexual nature. So it's pretty extensive, okay? We'll do it like with part-time staff. Sometimes we'll go into little examples of what you can say, what you can't say. Typically, because we're dealing with younger kids, asking someone out on a date is not sexual harassment. Repeatedly asking them out on a date would be considered an intimidating or hostile, offensive workplace. So we go into those kinds of things. We tell them, here a participant's father or mother comes to the program and says something to you, makes you uncomfortable, that sort of thing. So we try to give them examples because, just kind of throwing out the definition to teenagers, it's a little difficult, so you put it in context for which they can understand. And Laura, if I miss anything, please let me know. So some important points here. It can be implicit or explicit. So again, we talked about innuendo. That's kind of the implicit. You just need to try to avoid it as much as possible, or not as much as possible. You just need to eliminate it completely. Who can commit harassment? So we've talked about independent contractors, participants' parents. It could be same-sex as well, so it's not limited just to male-female. It could be female-male, male-male, female-female kind of thing. The time and setting, especially in the workplace, is very difficult because we have a lot of social media, we have the text messages, so your work really never ends. So it's important to know that even if it is 9 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon and you're texting a coworker about something, that's still the time and place is not good. We'll be going to IPRA at the end of the month, and I know it's a big joke at Purdue is on Monday they're just inundated with telephone calls about a staff member's inappropriate behavior during the weekend. So it doesn't matter where you're at, it doesn't matter the time of the day, just avoid it completely. So who decides if the behavior is harassment? So if I were harassing somebody, it's, well, that's not what I meant. Well, that's not you. The victim decides if it's harassment or not. Okay? So if you think that if something in your head tells you that you shouldn't say something, you probably shouldn't say it. If you're not going to say it to your mom or your dad, avoid saying it, right? You don't want it plastered on the news or on the newspaper. Don't write it, don't text it, don't post it. So there's a process in which people need to follow to file a complaint. And the first thing is direct communication with the offender. So maybe you've had some conversation with a person and you think that you have a friendship going or an understanding, and you kind of say something inappropriate. That person should be able to tell you, hey, I don't like that kind of talk, or I've had emails sent to me from coworkers. I'm like, please don't send me this stuff anymore, kind of thing. Sometimes that's enough to be able to stop the harassment. However, if it continues, there is a chain of command that you can follow. The first is go to your immediate supervisor. So if a fitness attendant is being harassed, they should go to the fitness manager, the fitness supervisor, and then she would report it back up to the executive director. Or if it's your immediate supervisor, then the next one is to go to the department heads, go to the superintendent of recreation. Or you can just sort of, bypass them as well and go to me, the executive director. Of course, then I would fill them in if it were, something that they needed to be aware of. Or if someone felt that they needed to, they can go to any one of you to do that. Let's just say that there's a charge of harassment made against me. So they would come to you, and then you would go to Laura, and Laura would, do with the necessary steps without my knowledge, that kind of stuff. So just so that an investigation has to be conducted. Okay, we have had Laura's, in her how many years in the park district biz? Almost 20. She's probably conducted a couple of these, so she knows how to do them. But in some instances, we can contact Perderma, and they can advise us on how to do it. They usually send us to another firm that sort of specializes in labor and things like that. So from there, so there are some possible outcomes here. So a responsive action, and I'm going to read this as well, may include, for example, training, referral to counseling and or disciplinary action such as a warning, reprimand, withholding a promotion or pay increase, reassigning or demotion, temporary suspension without pay, termination, and in the case of an officer, park district commissioner, removal from the elected or appointed position. And those are things that can be done to the offending party. There is some information in the policy about false and frivolous complaints. So if someone makes a complaint against a department head, we do the investigation and we find out that the person that made the complaint was not being harassed, but they didn't like sort of a job responsibility that was given to them, so they make the complaint. So that person can face the same responsive action as the offending part, not someone who might actually have done it. So retaliation is prohibited. It's just like, hey, here's a situation. Someone said that you created a hostile working environment. We did our investigation. We believe that this actually happened. This is what you're going to do. In the future, you are not to engage in that behavior, and you're not supposed to retaliate against the person that made the claim against you. Now, if the retaliation happens, they can come back to the park district. There are other state agencies in which they can contact, or some of their rights fall under the Department of Human Rights, but the Whistleblower Act and State Official and Employees Ethics Act all kind of deal with this and have other different remedies for that person who may be retaliated against. So one of the things that we do when we do training is if it is not documented, it wasn't done. I mean, you could do tons of different things here. So this is typically what we do. We have a sheet of paper that just says that we did harassment training, the date, the time, and then you just need to sign your name right there. So if you could sign off on that, just so that or that when we provide that training to Perderma, when we go through our review process, they can see that we not only provided training to our full and part-time employees on harassment training, but we also provided it to you. So with that, are there any questions about the harassment training? All right.
Typically, how long is a training session with the staff?
Well, this is just one part of several different things that we do. So typically, when it comes to full-time staff, we do Friday afternoon trainings where we'll do 2 or 3 of these things throughout the year. So it only takes, like here, it was about 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes. A lot of people just need the refresher, and that's why we do it annually. But when it comes to seasonal employees, especially the first year employees, we go into a lot more training, maybe a little bit more explanation of what it is and why we do it. So one of the things that we've done in like camp, when you talk about camps, there's certain touching that you can do, there's certain touching that you can't do. So like if you're sitting cross-legged, you can't have kids sitting in your laps. But we don't tell them, hey, you can't show comfort to a child, but you can't do a chest-on-chest hug. You can do a shoulder-to-shoulder hug. You can do a side hug. You know, if you're gonna, don't rub them on the back, you pat them on the head, that kind of stuff. Just to show them that, you know, we're compassionate, but we have to understand that there's certain appropriateness to certain touching. So, yeah. Okay.
It's kind of like the Archdiocese has this too for the
staff.
and parents.
Oh, yeah, for murder training.
First,
Yeah, I get mine every month.
Let's do it monthly.
you get an email.
Yeah, I get an email monthly.
One question.
Yeah.
We also go even a step further, because this was basically a lot of sexual harassment, but there are 25, 30, 50 different types of harassment. So it's, in a nutshell, it's any kind of unwelcome behavior that is suggested. So it could be anything from gender to, you know, so it happens. And it's an average case just to start an investigation is $30,000.
So you get into that unwelcome, hostile work environment. There's a lot of different things, bullying, you know, spirit treatment. So the only thing that we,
So I move to accept the recommendation of the Administrative and Finance Committee to approve the revised sexual harassment policy and the sexual harassment ordinance number O-01-18.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none?
Commissioner Schmidt? Commissioner Mano?
Aye.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Reese?
Aye.
okay, so the next thing is the GovHR proposal. You know, we brought this up a couple of times, but now that we have reached out to the school and to the village about doing some joint conversations about what we want to do with our pool. They want to be part of the process, but they think it's premature for them. They, again, think that the park district needs to decide first what they think is a good solution for our pool, and then if it makes sense, then they can fold into the conversation. So what we need to do is now have the conversations with the help of GovHR and Chuck Walling to decide what the future of our pool looks like. So now the total is, you know, is $13,200. However, that's, you know, if we get to a point where the village says, you know what, it doesn't make sense for us to join in on the conversation or join in on the project, and District 70 says, you know what, then we just won't spend it. But if it does, it's there. And we don't have to bring it back one more time to have discussion about this.
Yeah, so the proposal basically covers all bases.
Yeah.
It's just, it's
Well,
broken down.
I'm kind of confused because we haven't had a discussion what we want to do with our pool yet. Why do we need to have a consultant tell us what, you know, why do we need to spend almost $7,000 for a consultant to tell us what we want to do with the pool?
Well, they're not
Well,
necessarily telling us what to do.
No.
It's-
Then why do we need them?
It's the
Somebody
guidance.
explain to
and
me why we need them.
Well, at the time that I brought this, I was thinking that Chuck worked with us on the strategic plan, help us develop that, help with that, you know, the expertise. Look, we have one opportunity to get it right. At least that's the way, the way that I see it. If we had somebody that would come in and kind of guide us through the process of how we want to decide the future of it, and what does that project look like, and that would be sort of through a third party, individual, Chuck Wall. So,
But we haven't decided, are we gonna just leave the pool as is right now, or are we gonna,
well, so if we go back to the
Williams?
Williams, yeah, and we, right now, we're trying to secure a quote for some repairs.
Okay.
A lot of people are passing on it, or a lot of people are, well, we have, I think, two quotes. One is like, they're so far apart, I'm not sure, sort of which one to go to. So Keith is trying to lock that down. But again, any repairs to HAR comes to the board first, because we were very clear in the past that any repairs, we wanted input from the board is to do it or not to do it, because there are pros and cons to doing these repairs. We look at that structure of how they said, okay, right now, it's beyond its useful life. Anything that we're doing is patchwork. That's why if we decided, okay, we'll do small repairs, as long as it makes sense to do those repairs. Anything larger, we would have to consider. That's one thing. The other option would be to just, hey, do nothing and just hope for the best, or decide at a certain point, 2020, just throw out a year, that would be the last season, or we will not have a season for 2020, whatever you guys decide that you want to do. Right now, we're looking for that quote so that we can provide, a good estimate of what that repair is going to be, so that you guys can make that decision if you want to make it or not. So from there, we know that we have to do something.
Right.
Anything that if we hold off, we can do that. But it just kind of postpones ultimately what we want to do with it. But having someone to sit down with us and direct us through a process to kind of identify what that is, felt that would be beneficial.
Yeah, what they basically call is they guide us and help us
Okay.
do the research and do the public input meetings and that kind of thing. They're not gonna tell us what to do with it. They facilitate to help us.
Do we really need that, though? I mean, we can't do that on our own? We can't figure out what we want to do with the pool on our own?
I don't know if we can or not. Oil pool comes up again to where that kind of happened, where they decided to do it on their own.
Well, I think there's more things to account for that.
I'm looking at the proposal as sort of a referee in a lot of ways. I mean, because, I'm sure that as any project, there are people way to extremes in trying to focus something into something that is a compromise. That's sort of what Chuck would be doing.
Well, I can see that part of it. The other part I can't see, because I'm hearing from people that District 70 is not going to move their executive staff out of their school. So my understanding is they're not going to be on board.
I did talk to District 70. The superintendent said that, the board president said that he did not want to leave the building. However, that doesn't mean that something else can't happen over there. Like maybe some preschool rooms or something else, but at this point,
Right.
it's just all over.
But I don't think I can support putting a building in Hart Park. I'm just telling you right off the bat. I don't think I can support taking up open park that we don't have enough open land in our park district the way it is right now. We have the forest reserves, I get it, but I don't know that I can support putting a building in our park. Even if we close the pool, which I'm not in favor of, but we have a building right here. And I think our best option would be reopen up the talks that Jeff Fujiro had with Ralph back in 2003, 2004, bringing the village over here.
Yeah, right. Had a conversation with Ralph today. He said that would be out the front here. that is a possibility.
See, I think
in
that
the
would be a
future.
smarter direction for us to go in.
Well, I mean, that's fine. I mean,
Isn't
that's,
this
I
all up
think
for
that's
discussion anyways?
part, yeah, it is.
But if
all-
we're hiring a consultant, why are we paying him when we can make it, we can save that money?
Is it the 13,200 or nothing, right? It's just that.
No, no,
that's
no,
the
no,
whole
no,
contractors
no,
have
no.
the
That would be the
steps
full amount.
if they go through the whole process.
See, my thing is that can I say something? I see
So
both, I
it's
see
the-
both sides of the fence, because I think
7,700, yeah.
you're never gonna make everybody happy, right? There's just no way to do that. But I think it's one thing to say, yeah, I mean, we could probably try to come to a consensus on it and make a decision, but do we have enough information, you know, I mean, and enough professional know-how in this area to make the best decision? That's what's hard, you know, because if you get it wrong, you
But I
know,
think that would be a discussion between Jeff and Ralph to start it off with.
to start it
To
off.
see,
I'm-
to see
I'm-
if our board and to see if the village board would be backing it. Because the village is in a building that's well over 100 years old.
Yeah, no, I get-
Well,
I
talked- I'm
get
sorry,
that.
Again, I sent a letter to the village says it's premature for them to be part of the discussion when when the park district doesn't even know what they want
Correct.
to do. So, you know, until Ralph today, it just makes it a little bit more difficult for us, because we always have to keep in mind how could this help the village? But, you know, right now, we have a facility that is 15 years past its useful life. We need to decide what we're going to do with it. You know, is it going to be another pool? We could do that. I don't know. Could it be something more than just a pool? Well,
Well, can we just hire this consultant to do that and eliminate this other part right now? Because I'm not in favor of this other part right now.
no, yeah,
I think we've got to focus on the pool, figure out what we're doing, and then move on. Take baby steps.
yeah, no, this is, yeah, if we look at this, we decide what we're going to do with it, and then see well, absolutely. This was just if it got to a point where we needed the consultant's help in doing an intergovernmental agreement with
Then we
one
can-
or both, then we can do it. This
Right.
is the
Yeah,
maximum
that's why
amount that
they
we'll
have
spend on this.
Right.
So we were looking at $7,700, $7,720, to do, just to kind of figure out what we want to do with it.
And that I could support.
Right.
That's
Now,
how the rest of you feel.
No, I see both sides of it. I mean, I think it's tough.
Yeah, that's why we.
Because it's
laid
like, why
out
spend
what we
money?
did With the
Yeah.
total amount, as if it were.
did we have anybody else?
I would agree.
Besides them?
We did not, because we didn't send it out to RFP. You know, it's sort of like legal services, we sent it out, you don't have to,
Sure.
because it's professional services.
Right.
But I could see that. I mean, let's get the
Yeah.
pool before we talk about anything else, I think. You know, we don't want to put the cart in front of the horse. Let's.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry if I gave you the impression.
And
that's
and
what
like I
we're
said, I
trying
don't
to-
know if the school district's in it, and then have we talked to Gulf School District, have we talked to 63? I mean, there's other school districts that might want to come into a building too.
Sure,
I mean-
we did, okay, so in previous weekly report, we kind of kept it just to the 3 entities that had a presence on site already. I did talk to 67, and their need is just storage. Okay, not really kind of what we were looking for. I did, hang on, I'm sorry, Superintendent of 70 had a conversation with Malloy, who said they have some needs, but at that point, it would be a 4-person project, and I thought that, you know, one, they didn't have a presence already there, and that kind of would blow up sort of any kind of project into something a lot larger than.
I really think our best bet is partnering with the village and remodeling this building. This is centrally located. We're in the center of Morton Grove right here.
Well, I think,
We move over to our pool, now we're going on to the east
Well,
side.
Paul, I don't think anybody's made a decision that we put administrative over there or what. I
Well,
think a
that's
lot of
why I don't-
conversations was
Yeah.
that we could either replace it within the current footprint, or, I'm sorry, that's renovate, or replace it with something within the same footprint, or build something that might be an indoor, outdoor, with maybe
Other
some
options.
programming space, some, maybe a different fitness center, kind of, you know, different options. And again, that's where we've been sort of all over the board as to what we could possibly do with this, and just having,
And that's why I think
That
we should just
consult-
focus on the pool right now.
Can I
I
speak?
completely agree.
Okay.
So, it's interesting because you're right. And that guy who came here tonight, you know, I mean, that tells you right there where people are at, right? What's the most important thing? Preserving the pool or
Right.
figuring out the pool.
And open space.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, the putting the building up is a secondary part of it, right? I mean, that's the next part of it. But the most important thing is what's gonna happen with the pool, you know? We gotta figure,
That's why I think we have to.
we do have to figure that out because, and we have to make sure, again, that we
Well,
pull,
and
we
that's-
pull everybody.
That's
you
the
know.
idea and the consensus. We tried to include the village in preliminary talks.
I don't think
to
they don't
kind of
want to pay for
see-
it.
Well, it's
No,
not.
I mean, it wasn't- it was
It's just
never
the
that.
two properties together that if we did
Well, I
something.
wouldn't,
that's
I
the way
wouldn't
the
say
permit
that,
goes
but I
forward.
think that it's gotta be beneficial to
Do
everybody.
we have enough
Right.
space? Do we have enough space here?
It depends on what you put in there.
I mean, are you talking about a complete gut? Like, I mean,
Of this building or how?
No, you could put in
This
additional-
building has to be knocked down.
that's what I'm saying.
I don't know if they have to knock it down. I don't
Paul,
think so.
look at me, Paul. It's
Well,
inefficient in the way it was
I think
designed.
that
You
we
can't
need
just
a-
take walls out.
Could
And
be
that
like
is,
bring a
that's part of the
consultant.
strategic plan,
Well,
is that,
torn down.
It could be renovated, sure, but for the cost, you know, keep in mind, this is gonna be ice rinks, so you can't just take walls out anymore. You know, we tried all that, we went through that.
Well, I think that's where you need an architectural engineer to come in and let us know
Absolutely, absolutely.
what we can do and what we can't.
Starting point is Harbor Park. We need to figure
I think that we have to
out.
make a decision on the pool and then we go from there.
And again, the idea is.
So it's 7 for
the
him,
board to talk.
for Chuck to come in
Kind of get a direction.
and give us
going, and then Chuck comes
additional
in and
perspectives of things that we haven't
works
thought of
with
to
us.
help us come to the best decision on what to do with the pool.
Yeah.
Almost like a stackman, if you will, somebody who come in and
Facilitate.
yeah.
facilitate and give you perspectives you may not think of. Right. To me, if it's about the pool and that, because I personally don't have enough knowledge and I wasn't here through Oriole Pool, you know, $7,000, it's a lot of money, but I guess it would depend on all the services involved and if it's worth it to help us figure out that pool, it's gonna save us a ton of headache down the road.
Okay, and remember,
Yeah.
what was it, maybe 5 months ago, 6 months ago? We brought forward a request to do a community interest or attitude survey, which we decided to postpone that, because that would have helped kind of gauge what the village would like to see with that, being their input. So that's still, you know, a possibility to be able to do that, but that's a significant amount of money to be able to do that. But it would be beneficial, because, you know, we can have all kinds of special meetings on site or special meetings, you know,
Well, and
all
again, that's
throughout the
where
week.
Chuck comes in to kind of help us decide what direction to take and how to do that, and, you know, what the starting point is to get.
Well, I think the starting point is the pool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's what this is about.
Yeah, but I don't like the other part of it. I would just want to hire him to do the pool. That's what my thoughts.
Right, and that's, again,
And we
the way
can
this
always
was structured was.
revisit that issue if that's the direction we're going to go into in the future.
Right, sure, yeah, absolutely.
You know,
That's why it was structured
So-
the way it is. If the village decided, if we tried to start talks with the village and with the school district, just to get an idea of, you know.
Yeah, what's your worry,
what they were
Paul?
thinking.
Like, what's your biggest worry? I'm just trying to understand where you're coming from.
my biggest worry is I don't want to take up more open space. And if you're going to build a building in our park, it's not just going to be around the pool. And I don't really want to see the pool closed. I want a pool on the other side of town too, because that pool was there first.
Okay.
And you're going to tick off an awful lot of residents.
Well,
And I don't think Oriole Pool can support the
Yeah, I mean,
village.
and he knows he's right. I mean, it is
It
like,
isn't an aquatic center.
it's like a kiddie pool, you know, I mean, and there's no room for free swim. I mean, it's small, it's,
Yeah, no,
it's,
it's an aquatic
he's
center.
abs, and I was curious because that's the exact same things that I felt and that I've heard and
Yeah.
you know,
from other
keep in
people,
mind
but
too.
I was just curious.
See,
what-
you wouldn't want an aquatic center where Har is. I don't think you'd want just a pool.
No, it's clear if you put a spray park in where Hard Pool is, you're gonna have a lot of, you'll
Oh,
have,
yeah.
you'll have a lot.
Yeah.
That's clear to me now. You'll have people.
Hey, keep
But
in
they
Yeah,
put
but
a
you know,
pool back
again-
there.
We have to pay for it too.
Yeah.
So
That- that-
Residents
sure,
too.
depending
Yeah.
on what it is and how
Yeah.
grand it is. or-
If we decide, if
We have
we
more
decided
options,
that we
right.
were gonna do, just replace it, you know, obviously, we couldn't just pay for this through our bonds, because that's going
That's why I
through
just wanted to
Oreo, so we
No,
have
that's
to go to
my concern.
referendum. And it has to be a two-part referendum, not only
You don't wanna see
construction,
that
but an increase in
especially for-
our rate. to
Which
support it.
again is why I'm in favor
One
of
pool
fire.
can't support the
I know,
Because
but
that's
that's
the
the
issue.
issue.
Yeah.
That I don't think any of
Okay.
us have that expertise in how to do
Right.
that.
I think the money
With Chuck's
figure out
experience
the
and
best
all
way
this
to-
with Glenn,
to ultimately make
Yeah, I
that
don't have
positive
problems
experience
with
is
what he
one
did
part.
with us. with
yeah,
that,
I think ultimately the best way to get you that
plan and
solution
all
is to
that
have
is-
somebody
I thought
help
was
us.
very thorough.
Look at it as this, like setting up like a new liquor store or distribution, or somebody has no experience. You know, we're setting up a franchise of
Okay,
things,
so,
consultants come in. and they help,
Do you want me to ask Chuck to revise this without that, or just to say, okay, we will do the first two bullet points, and then if needed,
Yes, that's
the
the way I
rest?
like to see
Is
that.
that okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
so then we're
Yeah,
locked
I
in.
think so.
Then we're locked in the same price.
Okay. Right. Okay,
See
okay,
that?
we'll do that.
Do it.
Okay. Next, we got the general obligation bond discussion.
Right, the discussion really is, we've gone through the binding hearing, so we said that we were gonna sell them. We're just trying to connect some dots here and just ask for permission to sell the bonds, just sort of, final step beforehand, to give the board an extra pause if necessary to consider selling these bonds. But again, just to say, we're just requesting the authority to issue the $2.1 million in GL limited tax bonds to support the following items: the mower, fitness equipment, tractor, Oriole pool bond, and interest payments, upgrade to Pioneer, Mansfield, and Keto Playgrounds. So this isn't something that you have to vote on, but if anybody has any objections to us issuing them, just let me know by. Oh, I'm sorry.
Next.
Oh, well, we'll move it down to the board meeting, the regular board meeting, sorry. For a vote. You'll need to vote on it next.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Any general discussion items? None? Motion for executive session.
Yes. So I make a motion for the board to go into a closed session in accordance with the Open Meetings Act, Section 120/2, C1, 120/2, C11, and Section 120/2, C21.
I'll second.
Commissioner Randall?
Aye.
Commissioner White? Commissioner Case?
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt?